Okay, so far this year I have collected all my the videos that I've done from 2017 onto CDs, just for kind of academic purposes really. I can use them for referencing and whatever else later on, just being slightly geekish. So I've had these kind of rolling around the shed for a while, and I've lost a number of them and had to do some digging, so I've decided to make a box to put them all in and try and experiment with the scroll saw. Now, I've seen some videos of people doing dovetail joints and that kind of thing on a scroll saw, which I thought was quite a good idea, so I've tried to do that, although I've decided to do finger joints instead, though they're quite large finger joints. I deliberately made this one look like it was no, that's a lie. I deliberately tried not to tidy this one up. I want this to have kind of a raw look. I've got some holes in the wood where the original ply was damaged, and some cracks and chips on the bottom, just to give it some life really. I think because this is my first attempt at doing this, I wanted to actually do it and have it completely visible. So my joints are not fabulous. I've pretty much filled most of the gaps with wax. So that's not great, but you know, it does the job, and it does look like it's been beaten up and bashed around a bit, which it was going to because I'm using it. So yeah, this is my CD box. I haven't yet lined it, which is the next decision I want to make, because this works out as just big enough to hold my CDs. So I don't really want to add a lot of thickness to the inside with a thick kind of felted lining or something. So I think I'm just going to go with some brown paper or something like that. It's quite simple. I'm kind of whizzing through. I've also got the screw holes here, where the strip wood handle was 5mm just poking through 70 by a couple of mils. It's not big enough for this project, so I've had to. So I'm not going to get to do that before the end of this video. So a 14 centimetre here is high box piece. How I made it. So going through and cutting these joints was fairly easy, although they are completely uneven. I couldn't get a decent kind of turn as I was cutting. I think that's probably me being a little bit slow, but never mind. And for the top, I've actually decided to go for a slightly different technique, and you can see here, just cutting through, just most of the way, cutting the lid off and just leaving kind of 2 or 3 mil in place, so that hopefully I can just split that later on. So now moving on to the gluing stage, and I had a palaver trying to do this. I don't have kind of the appropriate clamps and things to do it with, so I'm kind of bodging and failing and trying again, and then eventually gluing everything together the wrong way around and having to pull it all apart and re-glue it, which was an interesting experience, not one I want to repeat. So I'm using a plastic kind of drawing square to square this up, but it's not far off. It's not fabulous, but it's not far off. And I'm using a lot of sellotape to kind of hold things together. So I've run out of masking tape for the first time in about 10 years. So I'm now resorting to clamping with elastic bands, which isn't great because they're just too flexible. And instead of getting some kind of posh wood, I'm just using some more of this ply, just for kind of top and bottom. Got loads of this stuff hanging about, so I'm trying to use it up as much as possible, because I don't really see much else use for it really, because it's got a lot of kind of gaffer tape and stuff stuck on it and holes drilled in, so it's not really presentable in terms of material, but for this as a practice run it's fine. So I for whatever reason I ended up putting tape all the way around, just to kind of hold the tops on, even though I didn't need to. And I had to remove all that before I could put the lid on, which was probably foolish, but... And you saw me very quickly there just trimming the top surface. I don't have a plane or anything like that I could use to equalise the top two edges. So just kind of whittle a little bit with a blade just to tidy it up. It's not ideal because I did end up gouging out more than I really needed to, but that's part of the course when I do that kind of thing. So just a bit of glue just to hold everything in, more tape. Okay, next day, removing all the various bits of elastic and tape and whatever else. And I don't know what I was thinking. I was trying to kind of score kind of the extra bits before I tried to cut them off, which didn't really work. And then took a dive down to Dad's shed, trying to find something a bit more useful. So I've got this hand rasp, which was okay, it's not fabulous. But I've pretty much got all the joints down pretty much flush, but I managed to scratch up the surface a lot more than I intended to. And gave myself an aching shoulder in the process. I think I need to start looking into getting a table vise or something like that so that I can actually stabilise things and cut them safely. Doing this, I managed to trim a couple of nails whilst I was sawing. I think I probably need one of those little flush cut saws as well. They might be more useful for this. And again, using sellotape was a bad idea because that stuff really doesn't want to come off when you try and take it off. So, more sanding, more cutting, more sanding. So there has been some discussion about whether or not I should do voiceovers on these videos. I still want to do a voiceover because I don't think everyone's going to go to the blog and look at the full instructions. And I don't really think people are going to be following me that closely. So I'm still learning very much so and anything. So on to the terrible sanding. And I'm fairly glad of the time lapse on this. That was, if you caught that, that was mother sneezing. So I'm starting off with a masonry sandpaper, which is a 40 grit, and that just kind of really gets all the edges down as neat as far as possible. It takes off a lot of the kind of the leftover fingers more than the rasp did. And I'm also curving over the top edge to kind of reveal some of the ply, some of the layers there. And then moving on to a 60 grit, and this is kind of woodworking sandpaper. I think using both is better because you can get a real kind of cut back using the masonry kind of, not masonry, but you know what I mean, the heavy duty stuff gets a real decent cut back, but then you've got to spend a lot of time tidying that up. So I'm not really going to go into kind of doing many grits and getting it back to absolute perfect because I don't really want that. So I just gave this a quick wipe over with some white spirit, and I'm carefully going around splitting off the top here and then sanding around these edges. So with some of these where I had those little tabs, I needed to kind of trim those a little bit, but for the most part it came out quite well. So I'll definitely be using this again. I've got ideas for using this kind of technique for my project for next month. So that's the plan at least. So now I'm giving everything a going over 120 just to kind of get it as tidy as possible really. Now having a moment of indecision about what kind of hardware to use. And then a good liberal coat of wax just to give it a nice bit of colour and to fill up the cracks where the joints are gappy. So I'm just piloting with one of my nails. I think that's kind of an easier way to do it really. It's probably not the professional way, but the way that works for me really. And although I said I wasn't going to do any more leather work, I decided I wanted a handle on this. So I've just stuck a couple of lines of stitching along a couple of strips of leather. I'm just going to screw that into the top here. So that is pretty much done.